What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I'm excited because today I'm here with Milton Lawson. I know him as the creator of Thompson Heller, and he's also worked with somebody. I had another conversation with Rich Quizzle. So we talked a little bit about you. You were part of the team that did Earworm, and that was a great story that I talked about quite a bit on here with him. So. That's how I know you. That's what I know you for so far. Your connection with Dave Chisholm as well. So, how would you like to introduce yourself? What do you do?
I'm Milton Lawson, comic book writer based out of Houston, Texas. My first miniseries came out towards the tail end of the pandemic year. Thompson Heller, Detective Heller, published by Source Point Press and Comics Experience Publishing. And I hope I'm here to stay in the comics game. I've got a number of other projects in the works, and just want to keep making comics.
Awesome, man. Yeah. I don't know. I have no clue how I caught wind of Thompson Heller, but once I realized it was coming out and it was somebody that was from right here in Houston, I had to make sure I got a hold of it, And at some point, I don't remember who it was, but somebody dropped Earworm for free, like just on Twitter, just like a Dropbox link right on in a public tweet. They're like, check out Earworm. It's a project I worked on. So I don't remember who, but I got a hold of that, and I was like, this is really interesting stuff. And Thompson Heller kind of, I don't know, like it feels like he occupies like an adjacent universe to that. Even like the Earworm, like it had this very almost like steampunk, like futuristic sci-fi element to it. So what's your influences for like this setting that you seem to return to? It's very like space sci-fi noir,
Yeah, well, sci-fi is my primary mode of writing. It was my favorite genre growing up in all sorts of media. Television, movies, fiction, comics, and that sort of lifelong love got me into science in college. And I started out in college as a physics major, believe it or not, and I got about 3 years into it before I realized I was not cut out to be a physicist. But I still have a love of science, and that once I discovered that the thing I think I am good at, which is creating stories and communicating, I could still draw upon my love of science and bring those sort of curiosities to bear on fictional worlds. And if there's any overlap in the sort of sense of the environment with Thompson Heller and Earworm, I have to give the benefit of most of that to Rick Quinn, because when he invited me to co-script Earworm with him, he kind of chose some collaborators for a number of projects in his Uncanny Valley series based on what he thinks they do best, and tailored certain aspects of the collaborations to fit the various team members. And so I think I just slotted right in easily to the Earworm universe. For example, the decision to set the story of Earworm in Houston, Texas, actually was not mine. Rick put that one in there. So it was sort of a nod to me, because I tend to go on and on about my city when I'm talking with Rick and my friends in the comic book industry. I have a very love-hate relationship with Houston. There's a lot I love about it, and it's pretty central to who I am now. So I guess I embrace it.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I mean, I think it comes with the territory of living anywhere, but when you live in Houston long enough, you've dealt with flooding enough times, you've dealt with, construction and the traffic and like all of these things, like you get so used to seeing kind of the negative side of where you live, but it's all from a place of love, because you want it to be better.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool though. I guess like the other common theme there though is the detective work was and kind of this like noir element to it all, and Thompson Heller. One thing I said about it from the first issue was like, there's a lot of people doing stories that they're kind of trying to delve into like noir or like the gumshoe detective thing, but their characters don't feel very gumshoe. And
Mhm.
right there from issue one, I always felt like Thompson Heller did. Like he's in, I don't know, part of it's probably the cigarettes, of course, but and the fancy liquor, but like there's just something about like the adventures he gets into, the way that he goes out there and gets stranded on that island and everything. So, like what are the influences there that you bring into the detective side of everything?
Well, I guess I should tell the genesis of where the character originated, because it folds into what you're talking about, and that is that I started out right. I'm going to back way up here. I started out writing comics in the year 2010, and I had a number of projects I was working on, and I shared my first couple of drafts with some close friends that I think have really good taste, and their assessment was pretty brutal and honest. Everything I was writing was terrible, and this wasn't false humility or anything. It was just the truth, and I needed to learn how to write comics with some sort of help, because just trying it on my own didn't work. So I joined the Comics Experience workshop, and immediately began to see exponential improvement in learning through the processes they have there. They've got a workshop. They've got classes, and they've got a workshop. And the workshop allows you to sort of share and do reciprocal feedback on different projects, and you learn as much critiquing and giving feedback to other people starting out as you do from receiving feedback from other people. Receiving feedback from people that are not your friends and don't have to pretend to like what you do is a very useful step in the process of learning how to do this stuff. So we do a particular challenge that was put forth in the workshop. Sometimes they'll give you these exercises to do, and it was a character building exercise primarily. They introduced a technique that comics professionals have had over the years to create new characters. But when I did that, I also tried to do Thompson Heller as a pure genre exercise as well. So I really appreciate that you liked the noir feel to it, because that was part of the whole point, was to try to see if I could, do something in that genre and give homage to that genre properly. So I'm kind of rambling here, but the creation of the character was the exercise was a good way to create a new character is to take either a fictional character or a real life person that and put them in a completely different context, or combine them with some other character. And just through that change of either combining two people or taking one person and putting them into a new context, you sort of immediately have created the dynamics that build an original character. And so this technique has been used by comics pros, like when they're in a hurry and they can't think of what to do. And the example they gave us in class was, imagine William Wallace, the character from Braveheart. Imagine him, but all of a sudden have him be a Star Trek captain, ship captain. And sort of those two little bits of information, I think, are enough to free your imagination, and you realize you've got a new character here. You got a little bit Mr. Scott, a little bit Kirk, and you've got a brand new character to tell stories with. So I took a real life person who was a journalist and decided to put them in a science fiction detective scenario. So that's how the character of Thompson Heller was born.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, just the comics, what's it called? Comics experience. I
Mm-hmm.
know Frank Gogol talks a lot about that, who is also published under Source Point, and y'all interact as well too, huh?
Yeah. Frank is one of the first people I've met in the comics industry, both virtually then physically on the convention scene, and that is one extremely sharp dude. I had the opportunity to hang out with him at Comic Palooza one year and just talking storytelling, not just necessarily comics, anything, movies, television, books. He had really keen insights, and I learned a lot in a very short period of time interacting with him.
Yeah. I mean, there's things I glean from him that I don't even think he realizes. One thing that like I find super sharp about him is like he thinks about distribution a lot. Like
Mhm.
comic books are meant to be read. That's how he thinks of it, and I see that from all these little things he says. And you're absolutely right. Like he just seems so well thought. About so many different things. Like it's got to be an amazing experience to be on the same publisher as that guy, because he is. I think he's destined for big things. So,
Yeah, and
um,
I think if I did a pie graph of the lessons that I've learned from Frank, uh, maybe 15 to 10% of it is story and craft related, and 80 to 85% of it is business and
yeah,
effort and marketing. Um, that dude's in a class when it comes to how to do all of those things. I'm
yeah.
uh, constantly admiring and stealing his methods.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I can only imagine. So yeah, comics experience is great. And then you were talking about like critiquing and stuff, and I think that's really awesome because I believe the exact same thing. Like I went to art school for a period of time, and very few things I truly enjoyed about that experience. But one thing that was cool was like our teachers would give us an assignment, right? It would be like go home and draw a perspective drawing, and you just draw some shapes and perspective, But the thing is, when you come to class the next day, like everybody has to put theirs on the wall. As soon as you come in the room, everybody's
Mhm.
goes on the wall. And then you just sit there and they would like pick somebody out and you have to go up there and critique one piece, And the thing was with that was like you could be like as ruthless as you wanted, but it all had to be constructive. So anything that you tore down, you had to replace it with a better idea. And just
Mhm.
like you said, like it makes me think about everything I look at in a different way. Before that, I don't think I had ever considered like reviewing a book or a movie or anything. And then after going through art school like that, I was like, oh yeah, like I see like something can be good and enjoyable, but like there's elements to that, and to be able to look and break that down and have that constructive criticism, it's good to hear it from other people because it gives you new perspective, and it's good to give it out because it makes you think about what you really believe in something. So I agree with you. Like critiques in that kind of setting are absolutely important to the process and learning.
Yeah, and I think lessons are available anywhere if you're receptive to them. Um, I do think that they're to succeed in this game, you've got to have a certain amount of confidence in your ability, maybe even a little bit of swagger, maybe a little bit of hubris. Because why not? I mean, if you're daring to tell people, hey, pay attention to what I'm doing here, you've got to have that at least some belief. And so I don't know about the humility level of everyone else that enters the workshop, but of course, I walk into that workshop thinking that okay, I'm going to be the best person here, no doubt. I'm going to wreck this place. I'm going to show them how it's done. My talent is going to be so obvious to everyone. I will ascend immediately and look back fondly on this, and tell the anecdotes. And what you learn, or what I learned pretty quickly, is even the most brutally wrong-headed script you can find that someone has put together, there are still lessons to be learned in the worst thing you read. And there are things that someone that you think is not doing the task as well as you, there's at least one thing that they're going to do in that script that is a new perspective or a new technique or a new idea that you yourself never could have come up with. And that immediately gave me a lot of empathy for everyone doing this. Like the whole spectrum of folks, everybody has a lot of story within them, a lot of ability, and there's just a lot of brilliant creators out there, and you can learn a lot from observing them. And then, of course, you eventually run into the people that are 100%, no doubt, better than you, and that's a humbling experience as well. But it's also an inspiring experience. Like the first time I read one of Rick Quinn's scripts in the forum, I was only jealous maybe like the first 10 minutes or so of reading it. Like I was like, man, I've never done anything this good. This sucks. How can this guy be this good? And he be what the hell? But then I got inspired, and then I actually was fortunate enough to become friends with him. So ever since then, I've been, learning from him. But I was learned from all kinds of people in the workshop. One of the people that was in the workshop very early on when I was there is a guy named Denise. I might be mispronouncing him. Denise Camp, who did Maxwell's Demons, and he has another very big project that he's announcing this month that looks awesome. I highly recommend everybody seek him out as well. When I read his scripts, I was just super blown away. So there's a lot of amazing, exciting talent out there right now.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's quite the experience to see your work laid out against your peers, and to be able to look at that through an objective lens, and it's a humbling experience that kind of like lets you know where you're at. And to me, that's the point where you start to build those kinds of friendships, is like to be broken like that, to believe that you're something special, and to be broken like that, it just humbles you to the point that you can see and build a lot of those connections, and it's always really cool because you see these groups and these classes kind of like come together, and you have like right now in comics, we have these writers out of England, the White Noise Collective or whatever. And they're like, it's writers and letterers and artists, and like they're kind of all working together. You can see them all blooming in the industry kind of all at the same moment, and like whenever I was talking to Rick, like the amount of names that came up that it was like, oh yeah, dude, like I've been reading his stuff, or I've seen his name here, and like all of you guys like just kind of like grow and build, and everybody gets a little bit better by having peers that they can compare themselves to and have that friendly competition, So I think that's really cool because I know you and Rick and oh man, what's his name? Hassan. I've seen his name on a lot of books, doing a lot of lettering. And I think there's one more name in there that I've seen all over the place that I've been following as well, So it's really cool to see like a collective kind of coming together like that, and everybody helping each other move up the ladder,
Yeah. In the workshop, the Comics Experience workshop, I met a couple of really fantastic creators, Rick Quinn and Renton Hockey, and we sort of built our own little offshoot workshop that has continued to this day with me, him, and also Dave Chisholm, and we just bounce ideas off of each other, share scripts and art and so forth. And when we get stuck, we can help each other out. And that's been ridiculously valuable. Like the creative process, in the moment is very isolating. So it's extremely valuable to have a trusted core of people that you can share things with. And I have been the most fortunate member out of that collective because I'm the least able to go negative / constructive. I always tend to kind of gravitate more towards affirming the positive things. So I very, very rarely have given a total negative slapdown of anything. But and I really should try to do that when it's warranted. I genuinely just haven't felt that yet with these guys. But they've definitely felt it with some of my projects and scripts. And it's really one of the greatest gifts I've ever received, because every time I've had one of those, you know, I don't know if it's every time, but most scripts I work on, you know, I'm constantly building and learning my craft. And so at that moment, I have the most amount of experience I've ever had, the most amount of lessons I've ever had. So I usually, when I finish a script, think it's the greatest thing I've ever done, no matter what. I mean, there are some things that are a little less obvious than others, but and then when you send that out, and then eventually you get the feedback that this is actually the worst thing you've ever done, it's quite it's a short-term shock. But then once you get the right kind of feedback, those lessons are the most valuable ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you spend all this time crafting this, and then you send it out, and you know, I'm sure it's one of those things where, like, as soon as the feedback comes in, you're like, oh yeah, like, how did I miss that? You know, it's so obvious. Like, they're absolutely right. How did I not pick? You know, but that like you said, it's kind of it's part of the experience, and you're always trying to do a little bit better than last time and craft a little bit better, you know, and you learn things in your process that kind of shortcut it all, and you get better at different things, you know. And I mean, could you imagine like Quentin Tarantino today trying to make you know, Pulp Fiction or Reservoir Dogs? Like, it would be crazy, you know, because of all the lessons he's learned and the things he's gotten better at, you know. So I think it's an important perspective to have, like, that you are always trying to do better than you did before, you know, but at the same time being humble enough to say it's still not perfect.
Yeah.
So in Thompson Heller, one of the cooler things about it is, like, you have all these like alien races and everything, and he goes around and, like, some of the dialogue and stuff is just in alien languages, you know. The signs will still be in alien, like, you don't know what they're saying and stuff. How much of a decision is that? Do you feel like you would lose the reader, or would it add to the character? Are you wasting dialogue, you know?
I felt that in these cases, I thought it was all about character for me, because I don't think I mentioned this, and I hope this doesn't turn off some potential readers, because the many elements that went into crafting the character of Thompson Heller, one of the core ingredients was the journalist Christopher Hitchens. And he has a number of qualities that are directly translated into Heller, sort of like how, I don't know, have you ever read Transmetropolitan?
Nuh-uh, I have not.
So Transmetropolitan is sort of like Hunter S. Thompson in a cyberpunk setting.
Oh wow.
And so I've got Christopher Hitchens in a noir space setting. And one of the many brilliant things about Hitchens is he had a deft use of either fluency in other languages or phrases in other languages. And he was quite a world traveler, and he picked up a lot of things here and there. And just in the course of normal conversation, he would sometimes drop a phrase or something in French. And of course, on the one hand, it just shows how brilliant he is, but it also conveys, his history and his backstory. He really did go to these places that he wrote about. And so I felt that I wanted to communicate that Thompson Heller is a guy who he's the kind of gumshoe who would get down in the streets with the people that are being investigated, learn about them, observe them, and pick up all kinds of alien dialects over the course of his life.
Yeah, he very much seems like somebody that's well traveled from like page one. He comes into the spaceship and he meets the woman and he already knows her and stuff. He wakes up in an unfamiliar place, but it's just familiar enough to him that like he knows how to get around and move through the streets. He reminds me of like Aladdin or something. Just like this kind of street rat that can slip seamlessly in and out of his official roles. Kind of in some ways, I guess, like Thomas Jane on The Expanse, the way that he kind of moves.
Okay.
Yeah, he's kind of like that. Like he can kind of slip in and out of like civilian and police. Like he'll be basically acting as if he's a civilian in a situation, and then when the cops show up, well, now he's a cop, and now he's gonna like take over his position. But then he's also gonna get out of there, and and move on to the next clue. So very much like a lot of cool stuff going on with this character. I really like the world because it just feels like kind of gritty and grimy. It's almost like I don't know. It's almost like Bender from Futurama. The way that their future is kind of like this weird robotic looking thing, but then at the same time, it's kind of reminds me of like Blade Runner or something like that gritty 80s sci-fi element to it. But it feels like a very real place. I really liked exploring the different worlds and how like Earth-like a lot of the problems and the civilians are struggling with, even though they're aliens in a whole different place,
Yeah. I think a lot of the success of the feel you're describing, I can take zero credit for. That is largely, if not 100%, due to the artist Dave Chisholm and the colorist Fabian Cobos. They just did a fantastic job of creating the style and the visual look of the world.
Yeah, and this is very much like on style for Dave. I guess, how do you know Dave? Because I've only come to know him through Thompson Heller, of course, and then Charlie Parker Chasing the Bird. That was really impressive, and Canopus. So, and then stuff talking to Rick Quinn. So how did you come into contact with him? Through the same network?
So this is kind of hilarious because it all seems like a network that just existed, and then but the way that the dots first got connected was totally random. You've talked to Bob and Kevin of the Metal Shark Bro team, right?
Yeah.
So their artist, Walter Ostley, was someone that I just found when I was searching for badass comic artists back when I first wanted to start doing comics around 2010. And I found his DeviantArt page.
Oh, okay.
And DeviantArt at the time was kind of the best place to find comic artists. The whole Tumblr wave had not happened yet. And there were some forums specifically for comic artists, something called Pencil Jack, and then something called Digital Webbing. And I think those are both still around. But DeviantArt, it was also kind of weird. There was a lot of weird stuff on there. But I found Walter Ostley there. And the way DeviantArt worked is you could go to a person's profile and then see everything that they've given like a thumbs up to. And so Walter kept giving thumbs up to these pieces that were getting published by this guy doing a music story. And it turned out that was Dave Chisholm. And he was doing his graphic novel, Instrumental.
Okay.
And so I saw that. And the very first short story that I ever did a comic of is called Winter Sail. And it's just a short little comic about a music store owner in the Midwest dealing with the transition of the sort of retail music business as music goes from physical media to sort of download media, and dealing with that sort of change. And so I approached Dave Chisholm because he had this sort of music themed project going on, and I sent him the script, and he said, "Oh yeah, man, this is great. I worked in a store just like the one in the script, so I know how to lay it out and how to pepper it with all sorts of little Easter eggs and things." And he just did an incredible job on that comic. So I immediately just wanted to work with him again.
Yeah, that's awesome. No doubt. I mean, his style is, I don't know, it's really unique. It's a thing that's coming along. I feel like, like comic art kind of comes in waves, and this definitely, what he's doing definitely seems to be coming back around. It's like this real gritty. It almost reminds me of like 90s, like early 90s movies, just like grunge in general, really,
Oh, okay, okay.
like there's a dirty element to Dave's work that I really like. It looks like not quite polished, and I really like that. I think it's unique. That's part of what I think works so well in Thompson Heller is you put him in this like dirty sci-fi environment. I think Dave's artwork portrays that very well.
Yeah, yeah. I completely agree.
And while you were talking, I actually thought of how I discovered you. And I don't know if I'm supposed to bring this up, but I still want it to happen. So I'm going to go ahead and risk it. But I can't think of his name right now. But Warrior of the World, you had a Kickstarter, right?
Yes, yes. In fact, it was about a year ago that that Kickstarter was happening, and like a bunch of, how all your social media will tell you, hey, a year ago you were doing this. So a lot of those sorts of things are popping up on my feed right now. I can't really say too many things in detail. What I can say is that the project is still going forward. We're still working on it, and we're on the cusp of being able to make some sort of a update for everyone who's been following this project with infinite patience, hopefully soon. There are a couple of factors that I can't really elaborate on at the moment, but we hope and expect to deliver something really fantastic to all the folks who've been waiting for it. The artist who's taken over full-time duties on it is Eric Whalen. And originally, Warrior of the Worlds was going to be more of a kind of a jam piece with each chapter drawn by a different artist. But we've kind of revised the whole concept, and we're now focusing on singular vision, singular artist, and the work he's doing is just fantastic. And it's just killing me that I can't share a lot of it with you yet, but hopefully soon.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Yeah, I'm really excited to hear that because I mean that caught my eye immediately. So I'm excited to hear that that's still something that's on your mind because I was like, I hope this hasn't disappeared. In fact, I thought it had been longer. I was like, it must have been like a year and a half or 2 years ago now, but that's encouraging to find out it was only a year, It's been it's been a very long year.
Yeah. As with everything in comics this year, the past 12 months, COVID is a universal delaying agent. It affects every little aspect of what's going on. So that is one factor in why we haven't been able to announce things. Another factor, quite frankly, is just the magnitude of the project is a little bit bigger than I've ever done before. We're doing it with Scout Comics, and Scout has this very interesting model that they do not necessarily on all of their projects, but they are doing it on this one, where instead of releasing it in issues, they're going to release the first chapter in a standalone issue, and then go directly to the trade. So the folks can try it out, see what they think about it. And if they dig it, then the next thing that they can get is the trade. So we've got to have basically the whole trade pretty much ready to go
Yeah.
before we can do a lot of the
Yeah, that's like
announcements and schedule.
their binge on model or something like that.
Yeah. I hate to say what it's currently called because they've rebranded it once or twice, but
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I forgot they
I
rebranded
think
it.
it's now called Nonstop or something. But
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
yeah, it's
It's
either
a cool
binge only
model
or
though, because I mean, how many times, I don't know how current you are on your reading, but it's very common anymore. People will pick up the first issue of anything because it says #1, and then they'll read it and they'll say, okay, well, I'm gonna just trade weight it, you know. So that's
yeah.
kind of cool that Scout's like just kind of, you know, cutting to the chase for us. Check, you
Yeah.
know, you get a sample size, see if you like it or not. If so, then boom.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool stuff. I'm excited to hear that. Do you have any other projects in the works right now?
I've got one kind of medium term. Well, I've got a handful of things currently. One I'm working on a horror project with a local Houston artist, and I can talk a little bit more about him in detail. I would like to say some stuff. I can exclusively preview a couple of things for you for the Thompson Heller Trade Edition that's
Ooh,
not publicly known yet. I can talk about that in a minute, but before we get to that, the horror project. I'm very. We were talking about being humbled earlier. I'm humbled by this genre, and I might not hit the deadline for it. So the plan is for this thing to be done for Halloween this year. It might not happen, and if it doesn't, it's my fault, not the artist's fault. Which is, it's usually the other way around when you hear about a delay on a comic book, but in this case, it's all down to me. But so that one's in the works. I'm co-writing a historical project set kind of during the pirate world, and it's based in both American history and world history. And I'm co-writing it with a friend of mine named Joe Thompson, who also lives in Houston. And he's a screenwriter, and this is his first foray into comics. And so it's been exciting talking with him because he originated the concept and brought it to me. My role in the collaboration started out more as I'm the comics half, you're the story half, but we've started to kind of blend a little bit into each other's respective duties there. I do not know when we can announce that. And another thing I'm working on, I can only tease the genre here, unfortunately, frustratingly. But my Warrior of the Worlds project is going to be a 2-volume project, so that's probably going to hopefully come out 2021 and 2022. Then my next big project after that is actually a sports comic, and this sports comic is sort of my entire reason for making comics is leading to this one big epic story. I don't know. Have you read any sports manga from Japan?
Not like a ton, but vaguely familiar with it. I mean, they do
It's
one for every sport.
yeah. It's an amazingly popular subgenre in Japan. And the first time I heard about doing sports and comics, there was a very high profile creator who said that it's impossible. You literally can't do it in comics. And it might have even been Bendis who said it. And I got demoralized when I heard that. I'm like, oh my goodness, because I want to do a sports comic. And then thankfully I learned that this is one area that he's just dead wrong on. It's a thriving option in Japan, and I'm hoping to be one of the people to bring the gospel here to the States and say, yes, this can be done. This can be compelling. So I can't tease any titles or publishers or collaborators yet, because a lot of that still hasn't been set. But that's
awesome. Yeah,
that's the biggest thing that I'm working on.
I mean, you think like like Stan Lee's Jack Kirby's life story or whatever that just came out. That's kind of an biographical genre, and something as slow paced as that, as compelling as it is, you would think inserting sports occasionally for some good action would make something even better. So I can't imagine like a sports type comic not working out in some way, Well,
I think Bendis's point was that just the nature of action, the way that it's portrayed in sequential art, just doesn't capture sports very well. I happen to think that if someone has that opinion, they probably read comics by people who didn't know the sports that they were trying to convey. I don't think that's necessarily needed. I think you could probably do it without understanding the sports. But in this case, I'm quite the sports fan, so I think I'll be able to hold up my half of the bargain there.
That's awesome, man. I'm excited to see what you have, now that I know you have a 2-year calendar already here. I'm excited for all your future stuff.
Yeah, there are a couple of other things I can't really talk about either. Unfortunately, you caught me at a really low ebb in terms of which things I can talk about. And this will give you an insight into comics creation as well. Quite frankly, one of the factors here is how big my tax return is going to be, because I got to kick off X number of projects, and you've got to do some resource investment to start things, and so is it good? One project tax return kind of year, a 2-project tax return kind of year, or am I going to have to go? I'm going to do a heist like the Ocean's 11 guys or something. We'll have to see.
Yeah, that's crazy, but it's rewarding too. So that's always the upshot there.
Yeah.
Oh, I was also going to ask you. I've always wondered your Twitter handle, Citizen Milton. Where did you pull that from? I love it. Like it's so cool. I don't know. It's the dumbest thing, but as soon as I saw that your handle was Citizen Milton, I was like, okay, there's got to be a story to that, because that just is so perfect.
I may disappoint you with the story, but I'll try to give you the most emotional version of it. And the most emotional version of it was, at a very young age, I was immediately attracted to, imaginative storytelling, early Marvel comics, Christopher Reeve Superman, just all kinds of things, Star Wars. They were sort of formative experiences for me, and I didn't realize it at the time that I was wanting to get into creating those sorts of things. I was fortunate enough to where once I became more adult and my passion kind of transferred for a little while into the world of movies primarily. And the first time I ever saw the movie Citizen Kane, I actually got to see it in a movie theater. projected on 35 millimeter film. And the person that walked into that movie theater was an entirely different person than the person that walked out of that movie theater. My life changed when I saw that movie. And the life I've been living every day since then kind of kicked off there. It's almost like a second birthday for me. So the movie Citizen Kane is not just my favorite film of all time. It's kind of the touchstone turning point in my life where I decided, okay, you know, I want to be involved in creating stories like this. So it's just to Citizen Kane, the greatest film of all time, and my personal favorite.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was like, I assumed that there was some kind of connection there, but I was like, I don't know. I think it's just great. In the world we live in, somebody to call themselves Citizen Milton is pretty brave.
Thank you.
And so the last thing that I have on my list of things that I had to make sure I bring up is your podcast, Milton's, what is it? Or actually two things, because you have a newsletter as well. So the podcast and the newsletter, where did that all come from?
I definitely want to talk big time about both of those, but I'm worried I'll forget if I don't say one thing before that. And maybe I might be able to send you some preview images. I can announce here exclusively that the Thompson Heller trade, I can't say when the date is. We're hoping June-ish is what it's sounding like. But it is going to be more than just the original first 3 issues of the miniseries here. It is nice. It is also going to have 3 original short stories set in the Thompson Heller universe, starring Thompson Heller, with an entirely new set of collaborators, and it's 3 stories. And I'm excited about each one of them for different reasons. You stack them all together, they basically are almost the size of like a 4th issue. So it's like you're getting 25% more content in the trade edition.
Wow, that's awesome. Man, now I'm really excited.
Yeah,
that's great.
And just a quick rundown of some of the new teammates. One of the stories written by Rick Quinn, and the artist on that is Chris Doré, who is based in Houston. It's a 5-page short called Bender, and it's focused on the relationship between Thompson Heller and the Archbavi. It's really the best story that's ever been written with the character, which frustrates the hell out of me because I created the character and I've written, 100 pages of the character. And then here comes Rick Quinn zooming in with a 5-page little short, and it's the best story with the character. Like, man, damn it.
Is there very little dialogue in it?
It is pure comics, man. It uses the medium of comics to the fullest extent. He packs so much into those 5 pages. It's just extraordinary.
That's awesome. Like, that's one thing I really liked about all of the stuff that I read by him was, he has this very minimalistic approach to dialogue, but it allows the art to just like breathe so much. And like, there's so much packed into each of his stories. But I mean, I think when I interviewed him, he said something to the effect of like, don't like, if, to say something is to believe that you can improve on the silence, and I'm just like,
oh yeah.
I think about that every day now. Like,
yeah, that's a fantastic point. The second short, is written and drawn by Renton Hawkey, who has a pretty badass comic out there called
I'm sold,
Ronin
man.
Digital Express.
Yes, I've mentioned it too, but please, everybody go check out Ronin Digital Express. It is such a cool little webtoon. I love it.
Yeah. And so he he took on the writing and drawing duties for his story, and I can't really tease too much of it. The title of it is Immaculate Record. The original Thompson Heller colorist, Fabian Cobos, did do the colors, so there's some consistency there. It sees Heller thrown into a very unexpected location. I'll just say that. And it's really exciting, and I dig that one. And then the third one is actually one that I wrote, called 9 Circles of Heller. And it's 9 pages long, 9 Circles of Heller. And it's a good, just short introduction into the character himself. So hopefully everybody's going to dig it.
Who's doing the art on that one?
The art on that, you know what? I'm going to have to be a horrible person and double check how to pronounce the name here. Just hang on one second for me. I'm bringing up my email. Kelsey Ramsey. I don't know if it's Ramsey or Ramsey, but she's based out of the UK. And this is one of those other things about writing comics that's tricky. I'm beyond honored to kind of be one of the first people to have her sequential art. So I don't think anybody knows her yet. And on the one hand, I want to shout to the rooftops, look at this amazing artist that nobody knows about yet. But I also kind of want to keep her to myself for other projects. So
Yeah.
like, no, I don't want you to know about her yet. But no, she's fantastic.
Wow.
And I hope to be working with her. One of those projects I said I couldn't talk about is with her. Incredible artist. So I'm beyond fortunate for all of the collaborators in the original 3 issues, plus the new expanded trade edition.
Dude, I'm so excited because that's the thing about this character is he lives in a world that kind of has like infinite exploration, and he has the kind of job that allows him to explore infinitely, So
Yeah,
there's no limit to like how much you can learn. So I was expecting there to be like another 3-part series or something, down the road, but to know that you're putting that much more content and that many other stories, and then I mean, I've spoken on Rich Quizzle's work there, like Rick Quinn is, I don't know, the way he writes is just beautiful. It's just truly beautiful,
Yeah.
And then, oh man, like Renton Hockey, that guy, people need to watch. Like, I think his art style is so unique. Once he finds traction, he's going to take off. So I love his artwork.
Yeah.
He has a webtoon called Ronin Digital Express that is the way that it plays with the camera and like the panel framing and stuff is just, I love the color work that he does and stuff. So I'm excited to see what he does on Thompson Heller. The other really cool thing about Renton is that he has a newsletter that I really like called Rent Space. And so I read that on the regular. And then you also have a newsletter. So I'm trying to think of is it just the Culture Radar?
Yeah, Milton's Comics and Culture Radar. That's the title of both the newsletter and the podcast.
Yeah, and so I mean, newsletters and podcasts to me go hand in hand because they allow a certain sense of intimacy. Like even some of these big creators, I read their newsletters or I hear them on podcasts, and they're talking about much deeper and closer to the chest things and stuff than you see on YouTube or like some of your more major outlets, And so I think it's awesome that you have a newsletter and a podcast. I like your newsletter because it kind of like you show tweets that like some of your favorite tweets. And I'm just like, yeah, I didn't see this, but it's great. I'm glad he sent it, and it adds like a personal touch. It feels like you're sending me tweets or something,
I'm glad you did that. I'm glad you did that. In fact, the newsletter has been on a very short hiatus. The end of last year, beginning of this year, A new edition should be coming very soon, and part of the next newsletter is going to be promoting a very, very special episode of the podcast. I have an incredible guest coming up from the world of movies, someone who's been directly involved with some of the greatest movies ever made. And so I think I actually broke a little bit of news in the podcast. So I'm going to be publishing that probably sometime tomorrow.
Awesome. Yeah, I love the podcast as well. Like, your guest lineup is top notch. Where does that intro come from? Is that taken from something, or did you hire somebody to put that together?
Well, it's kind of a combination of things. I have a voice actor named Meredith Nudo, who is also Houston based. She's a multi talented person. She does voice acting, improv comedy. She writes comics. She used to do publicity for Comics Experience.
Okay.
So she's connected with that world as well. But she does the voice intros. And then there's a sample. You might be talking. There's a sample from the movie Animal House in there.
Okay.
Thrown in. So
yeah, this was my impression of it. I was like, okay, that clip sounds like it comes from a movie somewhere.
Yes.
But the way that she delivers this sounds like it was recorded for this very well. Like, her delivery is just perfect for an intro. It reminds me of, like, I don't know, like intro to like a talk show or something, you know? And so it's really well done. I love your intro every time. It cracks me up because it's almost cutting your knees off before the episode even starts, you know?
Yeah,
like these jokes aren't gonna land. They're not modern, you know, like it's very comedic, but it also like brings me into the podcast very well every time.
Oh, I'm glad you dig it. So yeah, I've got a number of really cool episodes banked. The plan going forward is to have a new newsletter and a new podcast every week, and alternate 1 week newsletter, next week podcast. That's the plan for the rest of the year.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, I mean, I enjoy both independently, and so that's exciting. I'm glad to hear I'll have a little bit of Milton in my life every week this year.
Thanks.
Yeah, so I mean, I feel like that kind of wraps it up. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
I just want to extend your thanks to you for bringing me on here. I love your show, and I love the enthusiasm that you bring to comics, and hope that I can have new projects that you will enjoy in the next year or two.
Yeah, it was awesome, man. I'm so glad to finally get to like really talk to you, you know, and I'm very excited for how, I don't know what the numbers look like exactly, but I'm sure Thompson Heller did great, and I'm really excited to hear that we are getting a trade and that it's going to include a little bit more.
Yes, absolutely. And then sort of after the trade comes out, there are a couple of other chess pieces that have to move around before we know how additional Heller stuff is going to happen. I think we're looking at a format where we're probably going to just directly sell issues 4, 5, and 6, and probably use a crowdfunding platform to sell them, and then do the second volume trade at some point after that. But we it's still very early in the game on that one.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you have a date on the trade, or still to be decided?
Just sometime in June. So sometime I think whenever the previews catalog comes out that has the June material, it'll probably have the actual date then.
Probably the next one, right? Probably like in April.
Yes, I think so.
Awesome, man. I'm really excited for that. That sounds great. I mean, those are some great creators that you have. I don't know if you read Bitterroot, but they did a Red Summer special where they kind of like.
I do read it, but I didn't read the special.
No, it's a one shot that takes place in between the second and third. Well, it came out between the second and third arcs, but it kind of fills in some space in some of the backstories of a couple of characters.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
but what was cool about that is it's all written by Chuck Brown and David Walker, just like the regular books, but it's all like these different little short stories, and those are done by different artists. And so you kind of get to see the world of Bitterroot rendered in different styles and stuff, you know. So that's kind of what I'm imagining, you know, in a sense, like with this trade for Thompson Heller, is like where we kind of get to see the world through some different eyes and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I had the distinct pleasure of meeting Chuck at Heroes Con. I think it was 2019, and that I'll have to tell you that story offline someday because it's hilarious. Like, I said something that someone else could have turned into me making a big fool of myself, and I kind of did make a big fool out of myself. But the way that Chuck reacted to it was so warm-hearted and funny. He immediately transformed it into like laughing with me instead of at me.
Yeah.
And then we you know, we hit it off and had a great time. So yeah,
that's awesome.
Whole Bitterroot team, those dudes are fantastic. I've only met I haven't met Mr. Walker yet, but
yeah, I love Chuck Brown. His writing is awesome, and he did On the Stump. That was a really good series. And then Sanford Green, his artwork is just next level, man. Like the level of expression that he can put in a character is just perfect.
Yeah. He came to Houston a few years ago for Comic Palooza, and I commissioned him to draw me a Power Man and Iron Fist with me in the middle of Power Man and Iron Fist.
Oh, nice. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, he's fantastic. I love it.
So where can people find you online?
So the easiest way is just on my Twitter handle, at Citizen Milton. And then you can sign up for my newsletter at milton.substack.com.
Awesome. Nice and simple. Okay. And do we have anything on the calendar other than the trade that people should be watching for soon?
Not yet.
Not on release. Okay. No problem. Well, it's been a blast. It's been a pleasure talking to you, a fellow Houstonian. So, you know, the struggle is real whenever it gets hot out here. And
absolutely.
You know, and you know, best of luck on all your future endeavors. I'm really excited to see what you come out with over the next 2 years.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much.